Hey, this is Erich Pratt with Gun Owners of America. Thank you so much for watching. I'm here with Rachel Malone, our Texas State Director. We brought her up from her home state today to come testify to a packed full of congressional offices. We're also walking around in the Senate office buildings to visit certain offices. But we're here to talk about the Violence Against Women Act. Over in the House, they packed it full of gun control legislation and sent it over here to the Senate. And they're just daring Republican senators to vote against it. Because, of course, the idea is you have a Violence Against Women Act, obviously it's going to help women. Well, nothing could be further from the truth. This bill should actually be called the Disarm Women Act. Because it's going to do the exact opposite of making them safe. And that's the exact point that Rachel made to this room full of congressional offices. So why don't I turn over to Rachel, if you could talk to them
Yes.
about the Disarm Women Act, VAWA,
Yes.
and how it's, what are the problems with it?
Absolutely. So, like Eric mentioned, this bill is touted as a bill to help protect women. But all it does is it disguises gun control, and they're trying to use it as a vehicle to slip gun control in the bill that, of course, you have to vote for this because this is a vote for women. It's not. It's a vote against women. So here's what the bill does. It expands the group of people who could be subject to a restraining order that would take away their guns or their ability to legally possess a gun. And it does so in what's called an ex parte hearing, which means the person whose guns are being taken away doesn't even get to be there, doesn't get to hear the accusation, the evidence against them. The first thing they know is somebody shows up their door to take away the guns, and their gun rights are gone until maybe they can go to court and maybe get it back. So it expands the ability of people to get a restraining order against anyone who's been a dating partner or a former dating partner. And it's sort of defined, but it's very nebulous, very vague, open to interpretation. Is it somebody you went out with once or twice? Maybe we don't know. It could be interpreted however. And the worst part of this is, I think the people who wrote this and the people who are pushing it really didn't understand that there are a lot of women who carry guns. Women are the fastest growing population in terms of gun ownership and taking classes and carrying guns and getting training. And there's so many women who count on those guns to defend themselves and keep themselves safe. And in a situation where a woman is being abused, if she has a gun, you can bet that abuser wants to get the gun away from her. And there is nothing stopping, under this law, that would stop an abuser from pointing the finger at this woman and saying, she caused me emotional distress. She harassed me by texting me when I didn't want her to text me. Because that's literally in there as one of these means. She harassed me, caused me emotional distress, therefore take away her gun. She's the abuser in this relationship. And all of a sudden, that woman is disarmed. She can't legally have that gun that she needs to be able to defend herself, and she's right back there stuck in that abusive relationship. It's literally the Disarm Women Act, and it's appalling that they're trying to push it through.
That's right. When she was talking about the ex parte aspect of this, and maybe drill down a little bit on this, because you've heard Gun Owners of America talk a lot about red flag laws. That's the actual language in the bill where one party can show up in front of a judge and get your constitutional rights revoked. So there's really is no due process, right? I mean, you don't get counsel, you don't get to confront the accuser, certainly don't get trial by jury. All the typical things that we rely on to safeguard our rights, all that is bypassed in these ex parte proceedings. That's the red flag nature of this, which many of the blue states around the country are actually passing, but they're being rejected in the red states as unconstitutional.
That's right. So red flag is being introduced in many states, also obviously now congressionally. It's called different things, but all it is a means of taking away people's guns without due process, like Eric mentioned, without those safeguards, without a high enough standard of evidence being used. A lot of times it'll be just a probable cause standard. Probably this happened. We have probable cause to believe this happened. And all we're checking for in this case is, was there harassment? Was I emotionally distressed by this? That is far too low of a threshold to even consider using for taking away somebody's constitutional right to keep and bear arms. And then they do it without letting them even hear the accusation and confront their accuser. It literally is, let's take away the guns first and then due process later. maybe, and that's, again, completely unacceptable.
Well, you told the congressional offices about how this has actually been used against women. Why don't you tell people about the California case?
Absolutely. So there was a case in California where a cheating husband decided that, the fact his wife had a Glock probably wasn't going to go in his favor, and he wanted to be able to exercise control over her. So his cheating husband used his state's red flag law to get his wife's Glock taken away from her. And that's despicable. That's actually perpetuating violence against women, perpetuating abusers, and keeping women from being empowered and being able to defend themselves if they choose to do so.
So that's really how nefarious this legislation is. I mean, obviously it affects everybody, but the fact that they're trying to sell it as a bill to keep women safe when we've seen so many examples already where it would do the exact opposite, that's the problem. Before we close this out, one of the things I love that you told the congressional offices was your own personal story of how a gun can be a game changer. Tell your story about walking the streets in Austin.
So this is what it looks like for a woman to carry a gun for self-defense. So I live in Texas. I can open or conceal. It's like picking your shoes. You pick your holster for the day, right? According to what you're wearing and what you feel like. So I'm open carrying down the street in Austin. And there are a couple of men behind me making some comments about me that are completely unsavory, inappropriate. I totally can't even repeat them here. So they're making these comments. And no, I'm not in fear for my life. I don't think I'm getting ready to get assaulted in 2 seconds, but that's harassment and it's wrong and that shouldn't happen. And all of a sudden, one of them sees my gun. He's like, oh dude, she has a gun. And I hear this behind me. And then the next one's like, I didn't say anything. And they turn and they just walk away. And that's what empowerment and self-defense looks like. I didn't have to touch my gun. I didn't have to turn around and try to confront them or do anything. They realized I'm a human being, worthy of being valued and respected, and I have the ability to defend myself, so I'm not somebody they want to mess with. And they left. And so guns deter crime every single day without the gun owner even having to use them. And women carry guns in that manner for self-defense in order to empower themselves and realize, hey, I can defend myself. I'm empowered. And so any law like VAWA that spreads a wider net and allows more guns to be taken away without due process, it's going to harm women and keep them from being empowered, keep them from being able to defend themselves.
So you can read more about this. If you go to the link on the screen, you can see Rachel's alert on this. I encourage you to take a look at that, but it's really important. We just as individual Americans need to rise up and contact our senators. There are some powerful interests, not necessarily gun organizations on either side, but there are some really, like Planned Parenthood, groups that are getting lots of funding from this VAWA legislation. So it's, the fact that they're up here lobbying for this means that we as individual Americans out in the hustings, we need to make our voices heard, because obviously we're really the ones that will either re-elect or fire our senators. So if you're a gal, it's really important for you to contact your senators. They really need to hear from you, again, because this legislation is being sold to protect you, which it's not.
Right. I'm as a woman, I'm highly offended. They're using women to pass money for all these special interests and then disarm us in the process. That's highly offensive. They need to hear from me, which was why I'm here today. They need to hear from each one of you. So please click that link in the description or on the screen. Make sure they hear your voice because they need to hear it.
So gals, they need to hear from you. Guys, obviously, they need to hear from you as well. Again, we've made the link available. You can take action there on our website as well. This is really important. I want to thank you so much for watching this video here. Please share it with your pro-gun family and friends. We need to get more people engaged in this fight. Thanks so much.